All right, so hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another session of English history. As you probably can see from the way I'm talking and my facial expressions, it has been a very, very long week for me. And we also have school on Monday instead of a holiday, so I'm not in a good mood, but that will not stop me from making this lesson interesting. All right, let's get started, shall we? All right, so here we are. This is the 8th session, and welcome back. So, a lot of factors led up to this big change that England would eventually have. Let's talk about England's first Stuart king that explicitly said, I do not want parliament. Charles I. So Charles was the king of England, Scotland, and Ireland from 27th March 1625 until he was executed in 1649. So after he came to the throne, he argued with Parliament and they wanted to take away his power. Charles believed in the divine right of kings. If you've ever heard of the mandate of heaven, like heaven sent me here to govern you people, it's kind of like that. And he was determined to rule over the country according to his own will. A lot of his subjects did not like what he was doing. He was extremely unpopular. In particular, it's because he made everyone pay a lot of taxes without parliamentary consent. And people thought that he was doing the same thing as a tyrant, like a bad king. So in 1642, there was a rebellion, and he fought the armies of the English and Scottish parliaments in the English Civil War. He was defeated in 1645, and he surrendered to Scottish forces that handed him over to the parliament. So he refused to accept demands for a constitutional monarchy, which is where he does not have a lot of true power. He's only the head of state, so he can't run the government. And he escaped captivity in November 1647. However, he was re imprisoned. And Cromwell's new modern army had waged control over England, and Charles was convicted and executed for high treason in January 1649. So the monarchy was abolished, and the Commonwealth of England was established as a republic, and the monarchy would be eventually restored to his son, who would become Charles II. All right, the English Civil War. This is the war that got Charles into all this mess in the first place. Instead of one war, this was a series of wars between Parliament supporters and King supporters over the matter of how England should be run. The first and second was between the king and one branch of parliament, while the third war was between the king's son and another branch of parliament. The war ended with parliamentary victory at the Battle of Worcester. So, unlike other civil wars in England that you probably have seen so far, they were usually fought on who should rule. In this case, it's how the country should be ruled. There were three outcomes. First of all, Charles got the chop. His son got exiled. And the English monarchy was replaced with the Commonwealth of England. It was short-lived, though. And then this was unified in the British Isles under the personal rule of Oliver Cromwell. After he died, though, his son was not very keen on running the country, so they had to hand power back to Charles II. However, the most significant thing in this is that Charles I was executed, and this is something that happened the first time in history. because no English king had ever been executed before. All right, James II of England. He was the younger brother of Charles II. We got a problem here. So, most of the people, most of the Stuart monarchs were Protestant. This guy is Catholic, and that's a problem because Catholics aren't very popular among parliament members, and they are horrified because they are concerned that James would become a Catholic monarch, which he did. He ruled from 1685. However, he was overthrown in the Glorious Revolution, where his daughter came to the throne. James is the last Catholic monarch of England, and his reign is now remembered primarily for struggles over tolerance of religion. However, this also involved the principles of absolute monarchy and the divine right of kings. And when he was overthrown, this ended a century of political and civil problems by confirming that Parliament comes above the crown. So, after James was deposed to France, leading members of the English political class said to James's son-in-law William, "You can come to England to get the throne." So he landed on 5th November 1688. So he was established as joint monarch along with James's daughter. There was a principle that sovereignty derived from Parliament, and the Parliament would give you the right to rule if you earned it, instead of you were born with the absolute right to rule because you're of royalty. All right, let's talk about the Glorious Revolution. Anything revolution is probably very interesting. This covers events leading to James II's overthrow, and he was replaced by his daughter and her Dutch husband. So the revolution was quick and relatively bloodless. However, establishing the new regime took a lot more work, and a lot of people died. So despite his Catholicism, James became king in February 1685 with a lot of support. It was also seen as a short-term issue since James was pretty old, and his second marriage remained childless after 11 years, and his Protestant daughter was his heir, so they wouldn't have to worry about a Catholic son running the country. However, on 10th of June 1688, James had a son, and that was a problem because no one wants a Catholic son running the country. This was a problem. So there were a lot of issues that followed the son being born. James suspended the parliaments and ruled by personal decree. Everyone was not happy. And there were a lot of anti-Catholic riots that eventually appeared, and it destroyed his authority, if he ever had any in the first place. All right, let's talk about James's daughter and her husband, William and Mary. So William was born in the Netherlands. He was an only child, and he never knew his dad. His dad died of smallpox before he was born. His mother was Mary, who was the eldest daughter of Charles I of England. He was approved chief magistrate and capital general of the Dutch forces to resist the French invasion. So he forced the French King Louis to make peace in 1678 and then concentrated on building up a European alliance against France. In 1677, he married his cousin, but this was the norm back then. He married his cousin, who is the eldest daughter of James II. The marriage was intended to repair relations between England and the Netherlands. James wasn't too keen on this. William was a successful soldier, yeah, but it was suspected that he did not love his wife. He was cold, he had asthma, he was 12 years older and several inches shorter than his wife. So in 1688, they were invited by the Parliament to replace James II. They were assured of English support, and they arrived in London, and the whole process of gathering local support became known as the Glorious Revolution. James fled to France, and in February 1689, William and his wife were crowned King William III and Queen Mary II. Parliament passed the Bill of Rights, which prevented Catholics from succeeding the throne, ensuring that Mary's sister Anne would become the next queen, and after that, the autocratic rules of Charles and James would limit the power of monarchs so that they could not pass laws or pass taxes without parliamentary consent. I believe that's all for today. Please have a good weekend, get some sleep, and to all of you guys who are taking the PSAT if you're my age, good luck.